Welcome to Coffee with Kim. I am here with Joshua Hinson. I have to ask you this question. Are you one of the artists who did really well with Virtual Indian Market?
I almost sold out every one of my sculptures. I think the only thing I didn't sell was this little painting behind me.
Oh,
So I'm not, for a first time, never done in-person market. This was my first experience with market, period. So I'm good.
that's so awesome. Yeah, I thought that was you. And I was just excited because there was, of course, my entire team when we launched that Virtual Indian Market. I mean, it was just a whirlwind, right? And we had heard that you were doing really well. And so I was very excited for that. We all were. It was an emotional moment.
I mean, it was super. And I don't know what other artists would have to say, but I just thought, ongoing, not just because of the pandemic, but I'm sure there'd be artists who would want to participate in a virtual format, if they were unable to physically be in Santa Fe. Whether you guys are going to do that or not, I want to come and do an in-person market, but I'm not opposed to 2021 being virtual again.
I'm excited to hear that. I mean, I'm just saying from the perspective of doing something for the first time. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and the medium that you do? And I'd love to hear your story.
My name is Josh Hinson. In our language, they call me Lokosh, which means a gourd, like a water gourd, or a gourd you'd make a rattle out of.
Yep.
My mother is Chickasaw and Choctaw and white, and my dad is Creek and Cherokee and white. I'm enrolled through Chickasaw because it's all women, like 9, 10, 11 generations down the line. And so I still have a clan and a house, and it wouldn't make any sense for me to, be enrolled with any other tribe. So my straight job is in language. I work for my tribe, teaching Chickasaw. There's about 11 of us that work full-time in that department. And
is it a full immersion school?
We have an adult immersion program.
Oh, okay, very cool.
Yeah, we have less than 50 speakers, and we have to sort of build those missing generations in order to move towards any kind of significant youth programming. So in terms of how that affects my work, lots of the two-dimensional work that I do is based on oral history and stories that I've gotten told to me from our speakers. I always incorporate the language into a piece. Even titling my sculptural works, they all have Chickasaw names. So I've been a visual artist since I was really a little kid, and I intended on doing it as a full-time job, but then I had children, and I decided that I needed to do something else.
You sound like a lot of artists. I remember my dad, he was a full-time artist and a musician, and then he had me. And so he was like, wow, I might have to get like a real job. So he was an RN nurse, and he's actually Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I know how that is. I'm really curious because, just having, I went back home to Cherokee for 7 years. And one of the things that we were very involved in was a full immersion language school, and loved the whole concept of that. And so in your art, you talked about how you incorporate aspects of your living culture, and then the fact that you're teaching the language even makes it more so. So tell me some of the things that you incorporate, and then my other curious question is, do you sell to your local tribe, and are you able to use that to reintroduce, I think, the culture, not only through art, but the oral history of what that piece of art means, and teaching your people that away?
Sure, yeah. So I started incorporating language into my work in about 2001 or 2002. And it grew in complexity, because I didn't really start learning the language until 2000. My grandmother that was a speaker died 70 years before I was born.
Oh, wow.
So I learned from people who weren't necessarily my close relatives at all. So from these first sort of really simple drawings, I might incorporate the name of a subject, like it's a drawing of a possum or something.
Mm.
Today, if I'm doing a work based on oral history, I'll generally pull a sentence from a speaker, that recorded the version of that story. And in other instances, like this painting behind me was inspired by an actual event in my life where I was able to go to North Carolina and hunt swans. Swans are really significant for our tribe. They were the most important ceremonial bird. And I was the first Chickasaw since probably the 1830s to hunt a swan. And so this title translates to The Swan's Return. And it just talks about what was happening when I was there. And these swans made it past, and I was able to take one, and bring the feathers home, and we ate it and gave the feathers out for people who belong to our ceremonial ground. Mm-hmm. So my work kind of runs the gamut, but it always incorporates the language, even in sculptures and so forth, like these wooden sculptures like this is this is one of my effigy birds. It's not in paint right now. It's just ready to paint.
Right.
But this one is a widgeon. It'll actually be a Eurasian widgeon. And in the language, it would be something like a red-headed duck, because Eurasian widgeons have this really bright red pattern. So eventually it'll look like this.
Oh, that's beautiful, Joshua. Yeah.
It's for a show in Ireland. So I'm combining Southeastern motifs here and here with this sort of Irish Claddagh, and obviously the bird itself is from Europe. So I thought, I'm doing this Chickasaw Irish bird. Why not, mash up anyway?
I love that.
I think.
How did you even get to that place of being commissioned?
So I have a friend, Laura Clark, who's a Muskogee Creek, and she's also Irish. And I worked with her on an exhibit called Visual Voices, which was a traveling show of Chickasaw work. Right. And she said, hey, I have this Irish show lined up for tribal artists who are also of Irish descent. And I know you're Irish too. Would you like to participate? And I was like, well, I don't know what I'll do, but sure. So I accepted, and then, came up with this weird Eurasian widgeon, Chickasaw Irish, COVID, whatever bird.
I just think that's an awesome story.
It's so common in the Southeast, many of us have, mixed Native and Irish, English, Scottish, Welsh, whatever ancestry. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was really pleased to be able to participate. In terms of my tribe, Chickasaw Nation, acquiring work, I've been doing things on commission for them, or they might buy a piece for a museum or something, for years and years, 15 or 20 years now. So periodically, the tribe will acquire something, depending on what they need for an exhibit or something like that. But I get a lot of repeat business from employees of the tribe. But of course now, with Indian Market, Virtual Market in 2020, I had a whole new sort of audience for the work that, like, I don't know these people.
Yay!
They're just logging on and buying something that they thought was beautiful, not because like, oh, I know Josh, he's all right, I'm gonna buy some of his work. Nothing like that. So
that makes me absolutely ecstatic, because that's my intent, with what we're doing. So since the virtual Indian Market in August, we've progressed. We're just finishing up a sub-brand to Santa Fe Indian Market, called Indigenous Collections, a digital market space.
Nice.
And so, yeah, and I just think that with the science of how content marketing works and just being able to move that forward. I'm so excited because your story and what you just said is what I want to hear from all of our artists, is that I'm getting people from that I had no clue, and so I think that's very encouraging.
It's really, it was wild just to see the uptick in my website metrics, because of the work that I was able to do with you guys. I mean, like people from Ireland, or Russia. I had like 10 or 12 unique hits from Japan. Like, I don't know what's going on, but people are looking at the work and some of them are liking it enough to buy it. So
that's awesome. That's so
I'm
good.
good.
So so you've never actually been to, as an artist, to Santa Fe Indian Market. This was going to be your first year, 2020.
Yeah, I even when I was living in New Mexico, like I never went to Santa Fe.
Oh, wow.
I mean, for market, right?
Yeah.
I was in graduate school at UNM, and I was working like way too much at a bank there in town, and I just didn't enjoy New Mexico as much as I should have. So anyway, I applied with a fellow artist, Dustin Mader, who was a regular attendee at market. And when we got in, I was like, hey, thanks, Dustin. I'm glad I could ride your coattails. And then, of course, COVID hit and everything, went sideways, but it's worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good to hear that. Other than all of us being hopeful that we could join together in Santa Fe, aside from that, what are your plans for this next season?
Well, so I've had really a lot of really great success with these two-dimensional like daily drawings that I've done. I do like one drawing a day, and they're very cheap. It's like $50 or something, no more than 100. And it's a great way for beginning collectors or people who are just interested in works on paper to acquire something. Yeah. Right. I mean, so here's an example of a ledger piece.
Oh, love it.
It's from the paper's from 1901, but the story itself is based on the story of the white dog, and the Milky Way is called the White Dog's Road.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the Milky Way is this constellation, this hand constellation, which is sort of like Chickasaw heaven. So spirits will go up in the spring and they follow the White Dog's Road, and then they come to the constellation, and that's where their ancestors are. So something along those lines. I'd like to continue that. I have a fairly deep commission list, some of which grew out of Indian markets. So I'm catching up on things like this pintail. It was a commission from a guy in Texas. I've been making new patterns and so forth.
Those are some Cherokee roots right there. The fact that you're a carver, Cherokee has some very talented carvers. And, when I go home, we go down and see the ducks. And so to see you it reminds me of home. It reminds me of Cherokee, North Carolina.
Yeah, my Cherokee family are Vans and Hinsons. And our connection to Eastern Band was severed at removal, but I've always felt since I began carving this sort of connection with Qualla in particular, with the arts cooperative there, and all the amazing wood carving. So it works for me. I started making working birds, meaning decoys that people would actually hunt over. And then I realized, well, I'm an artist. I'm a Chickasaw artist. Like, why am I not incorporating my own heritage into this? So I looked at ancestral wood carving. I looked at Eastern Band. I looked at things from Mississippi, from Florida, and so forth. And I just sort of came up with my own riff on all of this stuff. you can see some of the finished tribal birds on my website. Not everything is bare wood. It has paint on it eventually.
It does have paint on it. That, you know, I looked at your profile and some of the images that you submitted, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is very outside of the box, I think, for SWAIA artists.
It's different. I mean, I can understand why they put me in diverse. I think you could have made the argument that it would be fine in sculpture, but I did fine in diverse, and I don't really care what people call it as long as they enjoy it.
Right. They enjoy it and they buy it. And so it definitely speaks to a lot of people. Well, that's cool. Well, you know, I am, again, just, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for encouraging us as members of the SWAIA staff. We're working really hard, and to hear success like your success makes it worth it for us. So thank you so much.
I appreciate all y'all's efforts. I know it was crazy to do anything in the pandemic, but it's really paying off, at least for me. And I know other artists that have had really similar, you know, sort of success stories coming out of Virtual Market 2020. So I'm ready for 2021. I got plans. I'm working on stuff.
Well, we're excited about that. Well, I hope to meet you in person, and thank you so much. And thank God for good bandwidth on a rainy day.
No, I'll take it all day long.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a good day. Bye.